everyone. We are the California Xi chapter at San Diego State University. My name is Kavya, and I was the president for the 2019-2020 academic year.
And my name is Kellen, and I'm the current president.
We're here to tell you about our experiences with running our chapter remotely and transitioning online. We moved our chapter online last spring and are continuing with a fully virtual chapter for this semester. So some quick background information. We are a medium-sized chapter with around 210 candidates eligible every semester. We estimate around 125 members on campus, and our average initiation class is between 35 and 45 people each semester. We typically have between 15 to 25 officers. For our normal in-person semesters, we host about 30 events, and with COVID, we have increased that to 65 online events per semester. And just so you're all aware, SCSU is fully online for fall, so we can't hold any in-person events. And so all of our events are through Zoom. Alrighty, moving on. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. First, we'll walk you through our transitions for candidate requirements and hosting chapter events. Then we'll go through some general chapter administration changes we made, including how to motivate and recruit your officers and run committees. After that, we'll go over how to do online chapter transition meetings, semester planning, before we end with online candidate recruitment and general wisdom. So first, candidate requirements. In a normal semester, our candidate requirements are the ones shown on the left. We had candidates attend 3 mandatory events. Those were an interview with officers, event polishing, and initiation. We also had them attend 5 non-mandatory events from any of the 30 events we offered during the semester. Do 4 hours of community service, and fill out an event proposal form and questionnaire. The event proposal is exactly what it sounds like. Candidates have to propose a new event they would like to see us run. And the questionnaire is a little quiz sheet that they have to fill out by interviewing other candidates, members, and officers so that they can get to know us and we can get to know them. When we transitioned to online halfway through spring semester, the change was abrupt. Because of the chaos, we waived event polishing and community service requirements for that semester, as we had no idea how to move them online. We also reduced non-required events from 5 to 4, simply to reduce stress on our candidates during those uncertain times. We created new online events instead and split them up into 3 categories, with candidates having to attend 1 event from each category and could pick whatever they wanted for the last one. Our 3 event categories were games and activities, which are fun events and playing games online. So some examples include group Kahoot, trivia, and Jackbox. We also had chat socials, which were social events where everyone could get together and talk, and examples would look like book club and just chatting events. And finally, we had lecture and workshop events, which are exactly like they sounded, events where candidates go and listen to a speaker, like Excel workshops or a professional panel. Making candidates pick from each of these categories helped to make sure that they didn't just participate in online games and had a little taste of everything the chapter had to offer. Obviously, moving online is a strange beast. We understandably ran into some issues when we changed things, but all of those issues boiled down to one thing in particular: communication. Communication issues manifested themselves in different forms. We found that conversations online can be hard. No one wanted to talk, and it made it really hard for everyone to get to know one another. Keeping people engaged was difficult during those awkward times, and silences were awkward too. When people were talking, meetings having a single audio stream meant you could only have one conversation at a time. The lack of side conversations had made discussions feel forced and structured. We did find ways to partially mitigate these issues, though. To help conversations happen, we increased the number of required interactions by increasing the number of non-mandatory events. Making people attend 6 events instead of 4 meant that they were talking to that many more people when fulfilling their requirements. We limited event sizes to make sure everyone could participate more during events and therefore have more meaningful conversations. We also created some ways to have side conversations. Now, we have a chapter Discord, so everyone can chat as a group and candidates and members can ask questions in a chat form. And we made up a new thing called coffee breaks, which I'll explain in a moment. So what else did we change for fall? Well, we brought back event polishing in a virtual format, and we'll talk in detail about that on the next slide. In addition to the increase to 6 non-mandatory events, we also added what we're calling a chapter mixer. This is a large social event, but there's only a couple throughout the semester. So the goal is to get a lot of the candidates to attend the same event to meet and mingle with each other and members. Over the summer, we found some online community service opportunities, and given the offerings, we feel comfortable requiring community service again, but at reduced hours. We are also requiring 2 of our coffee breaks. These are simply one-on-one conversations between candidates and members where they can get to know each other. They're short and easy, but should provide an opportunity to meet new people and get to know them better than just an icebreaker. So back to event polishing. You're probably wondering how we move this online. At our event polishing event, normally we give people mini vents for them to work on, and we also polish our big vent outside. This turns into a mostly social event as people sit around the tables and chat while standing. It's hard to duplicate virtually. Instead, we decided to take a page out of California Tao's book and have our candidates get creative with their vent. Now, instead of sitting together in one room and polishing like we used to, we have asked them to incorporate their vent into some sort of art, craft, or structure. We're looking for something kind of like the examples from California Tao chapter that you see on the right. Our vent polishing will be a show and tell event for them to show off their creativity and handiwork. We're going to mail our candidates their mini vents along with some sanding supplies right after they finish interviews, and vent polishing is 6 weeks later. This helps candidates stay engaged online and gives them a chance to make their vent their own and feel a part of Tau Beta Pi. Another option is what Maryland Beta does, which is have candidates create a vent out of material.
All right, moving on to chapter events. Same deal here. We'll talk about how we transitioned to online, the success we had with limited event capacity, and how we hosted our biannual College of Engineering barbecue event online. So normally our chapter hosts about 2.5 events per week, which works out to roughly 30 events a semester. We would have a variety of events, including social, professional, and community service, but we wouldn't differentiate between them in our candidate requirements. Candidates and members were told to attend at least 5 to initiate or stay active. When we were transitioning in March, we first talked about some rules to guide our ultimate process. We wanted to make sure that when we made online events, they still check the same boxes as their in-person ones. We needed to keep people connected, and we wanted to make sure we had some fun. So to help with this, we decided that we needed 3 categories of events: chat social, activity game, and lecture workshop. Plus, we wanted to enforce some variety so candidates could have a little taste of everything we have to offer. To keep people engaged, we determined that the first 2 categories of events would usually have limited capacity, so we need more of them to give people the opportunity to make their requirements. Any given week would have 3 chat, social, or game activities, and 2 of the other. So you're probably doing the math in your head and thinking, okay, 5 events a week plus some for workshop lecture, that adds up quick. And you'd be right. We averaged 6 to 8 events a week with 1 or 2 officers running each during the rest of the spring semester. For fall, we mostly kept the same arrangement, but dialed it back slightly. It's 4 to 6 events per week, totaling around 65 for the whole semester. If the events with limited capacity fill up really quickly, we plan on either adding a duplicate event to the calendar to help satisfy the demand, or increasing the capacity of the event and running the same event kind of in parallel in a Zoom breakout room. And by now, you're probably wondering why we're limiting our event capacity in the first place. Like, doesn't it just make more things complicated? Sort of. But have you ever tried to have a good conversation in a giant Zoom meeting of 25 people? It ends up being where 1 or 2 people talk and you got 23 other people sitting there looking at your board, or worse. They usually turned off their video and their microphones, and now they're just on their phones or something. It makes it really difficult to get to know anyone. So to help with this, we decided to limit event capacity for events where we expect conversations. We made it so that chat and activity events had limited capacity, while lectures had unlimited capacity because they aren't as interactive. This increases participation for each person, and we also found that people feel safer talking in small groups. We found that 10 or fewer people seems to be the right size, and our default is set at 8, which would be 2 officers running the event plus 6 other people attending. Taking those 6 attendees and doing some math, we find that we actually need around 60 events a semester to give enough opportunity for everyone to attend. That's 6 events per person, and our average is 40 candidates per semester, which means if we had optimal capacity, we could get by with just 40 events. But that ignores the members and the reality of people not attending every event they quote unquote should. So we'll add another 50%, which brings us to 60 semester events. This is not an exact science by any means, because some events will be at bad times and will likely have more than 20 members. But luckily, many of our activity/game events are larger than 8, and also our lecture/workshop events have no set capacity. So there's definitely some sloppiness in the large estimates. which is why we have those guidelines about adding events as needed based on signups. Speaking of signing up for events, since we're limiting capacity, we need a system to let people sign up ahead of time. So, how do we do that? On the right, you can see an image of what one of our sign up sheets looks like for reference. We have an Excel spreadsheet with all the events for the semester with a short description and other details, and then it's got empty spaces where people can write in their names. We use the same spreadsheet all semester and split it up by week on different worksheets. Events are added to the spreadsheet about 2 weeks ahead of time so that people don't sign up too early. Plus, it also gives any new candidates a chance to sign up with everyone else. We do have the whole semester calendar posted to our website starting at the very beginning of the semester. So people have a chance to look ahead and plan out their events. They just can't sign up yet. So prior to each event, we email out the Zoom meeting information to everyone who signed up. If the event isn't full, we will also post it to the spreadsheet so anyone who is looking at the last minute can join too. This helps keep events near capacity. Sometimes it means we have slightly too many, but for most events, that's not a problem. We've talked a little bit about small events, but what about the big ones? We have some experience with this too. Each semester, we host an engineering barbecue. This is usually a 3-hour event where we provide free food and games, and we invite everyone from the College of Engineering. It's a fun event that we host early in the semester, so it's a great opportunity for us to market Tau Beta Pi to the college and to get some brand recognition. We often get prospective candidates at the barbecue who will talk with officers and ask questions about joining to members and faculty. Plus, a portion of our outreach to candidates is currently centered around inviting them to the barbecue. Since this event is normally in person, it was a huge question mark when we transitioned to online. We knew we couldn't replace it exactly, but we wanted to try to come as close as we could. And we think it was a huge success. We had it over Zoom and utilized breakout rooms to make one large event into many smaller events where we had about 5 to 7 people in each room. We focused on chatting and playing games about 15 to 20 minutes at a time. Then we'd switch things up. We had about 5 to 7 people in each room. Attendees were given the choice between joining social or competitive game breakout rooms. The first round of breakouts was mandatory gaming, where we played Pictionary with everyone. The second round was mandatory socializing, where people were randomly thrown into breakouts and got to mix and mingle and that sort of thing. For rounds 3 through 5, people got to choose whether they wanted to be a part of a chat room or a game room where they played Kahoot Trivia and GeoGuessr. While they were doing this, we kept track of rankings for all the games, and each person's top 2 scores were tabulated to determine the overall rankings and prizes at the end. The system of only taking 2 scores meant people didn't feel compelled to keep playing and allowed more socializing. Overall, we had about 40 people attend the 2.5-hour event, and it was a blast. The event would have worked with 80 people too, so it can be easily scaled up with no issue. The hardest part was assigning the breakout rooms in between rounds. So if you decide to do this, make sure you have some sort of conversation or presentation to fill that time.
Moving on to chapter administration. Here we'll talk about keeping your officers healthy and happy, doing online chapter committees, and recruiting new officers online. I'm sure we've all felt how difficult it is to keep officers engaged online. I mean, I'll bet it's hard even for you sometimes to have as much motivation to run your virtual chapter as you did in person. Engagement is difficult to maintain long-term as well. Even if you start with everyone gung-ho, it's important to actively work and focus on keeping them involved and allocating time to TBP things throughout the semester. Online is also hard to notice the signs of a decrease in participation until it's too late. So talking with your officers often and helping them be on top of things is important. Remember our spiel earlier about communication becoming an overarching problem online? Yep, that one has come back to haunt us again. The easiest solution to most communication problems is to communicate. Obviously, that sounds obvious, but it's not. I've found that most officers carry around a bunch of questions for me, but until I see them in person, they don't ask them, even though I'm only a text away. So how do we fix this? Especially online when it's impossible to just run into someone in the hallway between classes. The best way I've found is to initiate a conversation. Video chat if possible, and then while they have you, they'll ask their laundry list of questions. Your solution might take the form of a more frequent officer meeting, or maybe a small fixed group of officers have the task of checking in with the bulk of your officers. Office hours probably won't work though, because they won't think to show up to them. I instead recommend a system where you initiate the conversation. These chats are a great time to stay apprised of details and progress, a good time to ask if they need any help, or if you need any help with something, and a way to stay up to date on how your officers are doing in general. Once you get into a routine, it's easy to keep. Hosting officer fun events where your leadership team can bond and take an opportunity to unwind and have fun can also increase motivation and morale. The goal is always to make being a part of Tau Beta Pi fun, not just make it another chore on everyone's to-do list. For chapter committees, things pretty much stayed the same. In case the concept is unfamiliar to you, chapter committees are a way to enable small groups of interested people to have an in-depth discussion about a focused problem area. We have 3 chapter committees run by members and officers, and none of them were really impacted by the move online. Meetings just occur over Zoom now, and the 3 committees our chapter has are member recruitment and retention, which deals with improving the candidate and member process and engagement, marketing, which does marketing things, and official activities, which handles organizing and implementing candidate interviews, then polishing, candidate elections, and initiation. Committees are especially useful online. They feed 2 birds with one stone. They'll allow members and candidates to feel closer to their chapter and a part of something a lot bigger than themselves, while also cutting down the workload for you and your officers. In terms of recruiting officers, virtual recruitment can be tough. Our chapter didn't face much difficulty filling our positions, fortunately, but we still saw much less enthusiasm than we've seen in the past. Members may feel like it's harder to get hands-on leadership experience and build meaningful connections with a virtual chapter, so they may feel like being an officer virtually is not as rewarding as being one in person. There's not much physical doing, and so it seems like it may not be as valuable since success is less tangible. One way to counteract this is to talk one-on-one with members and candidates that you or your leadership team think would make good officers. That personal recommendation of, hey, I think you'd be good at this, goes a long way to alleviating concerns about their qualifications and gives them some enthusiasm to try something new. When you reach out, do it personally and tell them why you think they would be a valuable part of the team. If they're reluctant, listen to them and try to understand and address their reservations. Also, make sure you have good officer transitions to make new officers feel welcome and comfortable with running a virtual chapter.
All right, speaking of officers, next we're going to talk about our bookend events, such as officer transition and semester planning meetings, and how we did them virtually. As I mentioned earlier, end of the year transition meetings are super important for chapter continuity, passing on general knowledge and making new officers feel more confident and comfortable with their roles and responsibilities, especially online. For our chapter, we typically host a single 4-hour-long meeting at the end of the year for officer transitions. But since things moved to a virtual platform, we split it up into 3 shorter events spread out over 2 weekends. This helped reduce the time people spent in front of a screen and helped people stay focused. This is a great method for keeping people engaged at meetings in general too. Keep them short or split them up. Here's our schedule for the meetings. If you're interested in the details about what we covered each meeting, feel free to ask us at the Q&A or reach out to us personally. For the semester kickoff and planning meetings, which are normally 4 hours each in person, we reconfigured into 3 2-hour meetings covering both activities. Again, this helped reduce screen time and kept people engaged because a 4-hour Zoom meeting is near impossible. While our online transition was very successful and the kickoff portions were reasonably so, we definitely need to improve our process for the online calendar planning activities. It was definitely a disaster. Our calendar planning normally consists of event brainstorming, down selection, initial scheduling, and lastly, reflection and correction of the calendar. For scheduling and correcting, we normally have a post-it for each event and a giant calendar on the wall, so we can move events around and have an overview of how they look. Taking care to fix things such as not having all of our events on a Wednesday or scheduling something late Friday night and then early Saturday morning. This was difficult to replicate virtually, and we're still in search of a better method. We tried to use a spreadsheet to help emulate this. It worked from a technical perspective, giving us a calendar view of the events that we were planning and moving around, but we never successfully had the same level of engagement among officers or ability to critically look at the schedule. Our other big problem during goal discussions and calendar planning was brainstorming. We have not found an effective way to brainstorm online, especially when it comes to making sure everybody is actively participating through this whole process. If your chapter has planned its calendar online and has a more effective method, or you think you could know a way to help with our brainstorming dilemma, please come chat with us during the Q&A session at Unvention. We'd love to have a discussion with you.
Last but not least, we'll talk about virtual candidate recruitment, the benefits of an online chapter before finishing off with some general parting wisdom. As a chapter, we have actually been quite successful with our virtual recruitment. But first, you're probably wondering what our process was like before COVID. Well, first, we mail candidates letters of eligibility. In these letters, we tell them that they are eligible and should consider joining Tau Beta Pi. We include a letter from the Dean of Engineering, who's also a member in our case, telling them to join, a half sheet of facts about TPP, and a flyer inviting them to our barbecue. The flyer was added this time around since we can't advertise by posting flyers everywhere like we normally do. So we instead stuffed them in the envelopes with everything else. We also emailed candidates to tell them that they are eligible and go to classes to do class talks. These were short 2-minute talks in the beginning of class to tell people about Tau Beta Pi. And we typically hit junior and senior level classes, and we're normally just showing up and giving the class talk. But with classes moving online, this became difficult, as many professors weren't willing to give out Zoom links or were not holding synchronous classes at all. So we created a recruitment video for professors to post on their Blackboard or Canvas page. We also cold call candidates to invite them to the barbecue and to come to our informational session. If you're interested in learning more about any of the pieces in this process, we would love to chat with you at our Q&A session during Unvention. So ask us then. Moving on to some benefits of a virtual chapter. You're probably thinking, benefits? What can possibly be the benefit of running a virtual chapter? Well, actually, there are quite a few. Firstly, having a virtual chapter means that you can get out-of-state speakers for professional events and panels. Last semester, our professional panel had speakers from 3 corners of the country. Second, the commute is way shorter. There's a lot less difficult scheduling meetings or events at odd hours since you don't have 30 minutes of commute on either end, or someone would need to come all the way to campus only for a 1-hour event. Communication and collaboration across the district is also easier. This year is a great time to do joint events, pool resources, and let your members meet other chapters across the district without having to wait until conference. Lastly, now everyone is comfortable meeting online. If I had asked people to do video chat last December, I would have been met with a lot of confused people and general pushback. Now it's practically second nature, and that level of comfort will stick around after COVID is over. If we find events that work great online, we'll be able to keep them around even after we get back to normal, and combining the best part of virtual and in-person chapters will be possible. We want to leave you with some words of wisdom from all of us here at California Xi. Online communication only happens on purpose. There are no casual conversations after events and no chance meetings in the hallway. Finding a way to design conversations into your schedule, or better yet, into your chapter activities, is especially important for the growth and health of your chapter. It's also especially important for one-on-one chats with your current or potential officers. Keeping people engaged during events is sometimes difficult, especially during those awkward silences. But if you're welcoming and friendly, candidates and members will open up too. One great way to improve participation is to always have your camera on, and encourage everyone else to turn on theirs too. This makes a huge difference, being able to see people's friendly faces. Remember that this situation is new for everyone, yet at the same time it's kind of getting old too. So don't be afraid to ask questions or get feedback. Your members and candidates will probably be happy to tell you exactly what they want or what they've seen successful in other organizations. I also want to remind you that you have a number of external resources already at hand. Reach out to your advisors, reach out to your district directors, and to other chapters in your district. I've found that they can be very willing to help with brainstorming or problem solving. Plus, your DDs can usually give you suggestions based on what they hear from other chapters as well, but you have to reach out. In conclusion, remember that you're totally awesome and you can tackle this. For engineers, our job is to reshape the world and pursue our ambitions. This is no different. Have confidence, make robust plans, and trust your gut.
Well, that's it for our presentation. Thanks for listening. We hope it was informative and useful to you and your chapter. We look forward to your questions and discussion at Unvention. If you want to reach out to us personally, feel free to email us or check out our website and Instagram.